Hello, my name is Donovan Brown. If you enjoy this video, you can follow me on Twitter, or you can also follow my blog. In this video, I'm going to show you some techniques I use to speed up the playback of my coded UI test. I will also show you ways to make your test more flexible and more reliable. What I will not show in this video is how to record a coded UI test. I have other videos that cover that. We are going to begin with an existing test that I want to polish. So let's run the test now so that you can see it in action. While it is running, I will point out areas that we're going to improve. To start the test, just right-click in the test method and choose Run Test from the context menu. You're going to see that it starts Internet Explorer with the website and it logs in, and what we're going to attempt to do in this test is to create an event. But as you can notice, it takes a long time after I choose the management menu before it actually clicks the Add Event button. We're going to actually go back in and fix some of that. Once it's on the page, it runs along just the way that we want it to. You might also notice here as well that the selection of the calendar control takes quite a bit of time. You can see it stopping and pausing over each of the different digits as we hover across them. The rest of the pages again run very, very quickly, just like I want. And there's validations actually happening in the background as well. Here's an interesting point. When I did the original recording, I thought I needed to go to the groups page. So I went and I clicked on the groups page here, which is going to show up in a moment. But then when I got there, I realized I did not need to come to this particular page. So later on in this video, we're going to remove this particular step from our existing recording. Again, as you can tell, it takes a really long time for it to actually manipulate the particular menus. And we're going to go in and I'm going to show you techniques on how we can speed that up. Before you're able to use these techniques, you're going to need to make sure that you have Feature Pack 2 installed inside Visual Studio. Because I have Feature Pack 2 installed, when I double click on my UI map, I actually get a graphical user interface showing me all of the different items inside of that particular map. On the left hand side is a list of all of the different methods I created during my recording. I want to locate the section where I was actually manipulating the menu. As you can see, there's 3 different hovers inside of this particular method. That's where the delay is coming from. We only need to hover long enough to have the menu expand. Once it does, we simply need to click the Add Event. So we're going to remove 2 of these 3 different hovers, which will reduce the amount of time it takes to select a menu option. We're also going to repeat this for the classes and the groups menu options, which we use later in the test. With the menus corrected now, we can change our focus to the calendar control, which also took a lot of time to select the desired date. Again, you're going to notice that when we find that section of our methods here, we're going to have lots of different hovers inside of there. Because the way the calendar control works, we don't need any of these hovers. We just need to click into the text box to show the actual calendar and then the clicking of the date that we want. Now with all the hovers removed, let's run the test again and see what the results are. You still notice a little pause when it actually has to click the button. But what we actually reduced was the amount of time it took it to actually get over the Add Event button. You'll notice a little bit better here when we go to the Groups menu. You might have noticed also that the calendar selection was much, much quicker. So now we're going to come back here, delete this guy. You see it jumps straight to Group. It didn't have to first hover over Classes and hover over Class Modifier. Same thing here, it goes straight to the Classes. So we reduced the amount of time it takes to manipulate those particular menus. Now that we have the test running faster, let's go and remove that step where I actually went to the groups page, because the groups page is not needed for this particular test. So from the code, I simply delete the line that accesses the groups menu, and then I rerun the test. Something unexpected is actually going to happen when we attempt to rerun this test. The first time I ran it, I was a little shocked that it did not perform the way that I expected it to. But again, it was a great learning experience for me and one that I could use to teach people on how better to use the coded UI test. So in a moment, we're actually going to see that the test is actually going to fail. When it gets time for it to actually select the classes menu, it's simply going to hang. And in a moment, I'll explain to you why. Whenever a test fails, all you have to do is right-click on it in the test results window and actually see the results details. Inside of there are clues on why the test actually failed. And as we can see, it's because it was expecting the Internet Explorer window to actually have the word groups in it. Because when we originally recorded our test, we were actually on the groups page. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the Coded UI test editor, and we're going to go in and find that particular window and tell the test it's okay if the window does not have the word groups in it. We don't care what page we're on as long as it's an Internet Explorer window, and we can do that by actually manipulating the search properties of the window that it's looking for. So from the properties window here, we can actually go in, find the search properties for the window, and we'll see that it actually expects the title or the name to be groups. we're simply going to remove this. By removing it, we're removing one of the criteria that it uses to locate the window that it expects to use for the next steps of its particular test. So now it's going to be happy with any Internet Explorer window that it finds. It's going to go ahead and attempt to run those particular steps. So now we're running the test again, and this time when it gets to the point of actually clicking the classes menu, it shouldn't have any problem doing so because it's going to ignore the title of the particular page. As you can see, it found the classes menu just like we wanted. But something else interesting is going to happen here. We now have too many classes because the first time our test failed. And because it failed, we now have more results in that grid than we did before. What's interesting here is that if we go and look at the results details, it tells us exactly why. The last time we ran this, the control had a different name because it had fewer rows in our database. So now we have more rows, our control name has changed, and we can go back in and we can actually make our test a little bit more resilient. One really nice feature of the CodeGui test editor is that if you select a method on the left-hand side, it actually highlights all the controls on the right-hand side that are actually used in that particular step or action. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to go ahead and click on that one, and we're going to give it a more meaningful name, right? This name is obviously very difficult for us to use, and this represents the delete button at the bottom of our grid. So I'm just going to give it a name that I can actually remember. So this is the classes column delete button because it's on the classes page. It's the column delete. Now I'm going to go in the search criteria here, and I'm going to tell it that I don't want the ID to have to equal this because the number is going to change every time. I just want it to contain the word delete image button. I know no matter how many rows are in the table, the delete image button will be part of the name. So as long as it contains that, I'm okay. So we're going to change both of these here, and now when we rerun our test, no matter how many classes are actually in the actual database, it's going to actually be able to click that particular button for us. One other thing I'm going to have to do before we run this is to remove a verification that I have that actually validates that only one item was deleted. I'm only doing this temporarily because I want you to see that we can actually run this test again and actually get the desired results of clicking that button, and then afterwards we'll go back in and we'll put that validation back in. Now once the classes pages loads, you're going to see there's actually 3 classes in there, and we can actually delete them with no problem. So the test was able to identify that particular delete button because it had delete image in the name. So now that that's done, we can go back in and put our validation back in that validates that only one is actually being deleted. And we're going to do one more thing here. I'm going to actually show you how you can control how long the test actually chooses to hover whenever we find one of those hover actions. So here we can use a static property called hover duration and set it to the number of milliseconds we actually want the mouse to hover over any particular item of our page. So now when we run this again, even when it hovers over something, it's going to hover over it for a very short period of time. So there you have it. With just a couple of little techniques, we can actually make our test run much, much quicker so that we don't have to wait as long to get the results of our particular test. Again, just pay attention to your search criteria on each individual control and look through the actions that were recorded. Many of them might not be necessary for you to still get the results that you want from your test. If you like this video and you'd like to see more, please leave some comments. Thanks.